16th regular board meeting to order. Join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you very much. As you can see, we have a majority of the board here, but we're missing a few members this morning. So I'd like to say we have quality versus quantity. Is that the word? Either way, we'll get the job done. Public comments. This is the portion of our meeting that we open it up to the public. Anybody here that'd like to say a few words on something that's not on our agenda this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 2, the agenda review and adoption. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3, the approval of the minutes from July 9th special session. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion, again, carries unanimously. Community announcements. Commissioner Ruman.
Mr. Chair, I think it would be appropriate to acknowledge there was an attempt on a former president's life, and we're reaching an election cycle. I hope that this election cycle is one of civility. I see a number of people in the audience that have filed to run, and I think that the positivity that we've traditionally been known for in Carver County is to be alive and well. So thoughts and prayers with former president, but also the civility within our communities. Had a chance to attend a number of events this weekend and beyond. Fire and Ice was beautiful and wonderful. Again, City of Chaska puts on a great event. Saw a number of people there. And those are the opportunities to talk to people that you wouldn't ordinarily bump into that might not come into the boardroom or send emails. Also had a chance to be part of the dunk tank. It's not often that you get to dunk the police chief and the superintendent within minutes of each other. And so it was fun to see people out and about and engaged with the community. The fireworks were fantastic. And there were people young and old all there to celebrate together. Bumped into Monica Stazano on Sunday. If you don't know who she is, she plays professional basketball in Hungary, and she was part of the basketball run for the University of University of Iowa. And she grew up in Watertown. And when I was talking to her after the game, Clark versus the Lynx, she says, please say hello to Commissioner Lynch. And so it's kind of fun to have somebody that's playing at that level. We had a cannabis meeting that we'll be talking about a little bit today, a couple weeks ago in the boardroom as well. And there was a township meeting, dozens of phone conversations with people in that industry. It's the one that I need to be up to speed on a little bit more, and we're getting educated on in a lot of different ways. Planning on a tour next week at the production facility of the gentleman that was at the township meeting. If anybody wants to join that, let me know. And then other people too on the fringe of some of the businesses that are there, conversations with people that own a THC business for THC water, other people that are trying to be in the distribution business. So we have a lot to learn. We're learning a lot. Our staff's learning a lot. And one of the guys afterwards said, you know, our staff is learning and leading in a way that he's not seen across other counties because his business is across multiple counties. I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. There's a planned tour of the Hennepin County, our peers over there, not only their government center, but one of their buildings. So if anybody's interested in joining, please let me know. Had a chance to be out at the Environmental Services building twice last week. Once to see the flow of traffic as Costco opened up, because I know that we're anticipating what that roundabout would be. And that particular day, it was raining and there wasn't a whole lot of traffic, but I think later in the day it built. And I think that our assumption will come to light, because I had somebody reach out and say, yeah, I did go out and drop off my cardboard and then go to Costco later in the day. And then I also see, I took a walk, as we talked about, is there a way that we can prolong the longevity of that building and save taxpayer dollars over long term by doing a loop? So I had a chance to walk the facility, which was good. DMV has been something that a number of constituents have reached out to, and it's a challenge because sometimes people have to wait in line, but I think that we're making strides in the right direction. And just as recently as today, I got note, we've been working on this for two and a half years to get data to find out how well we do and how much capacity we may need. And a year and a half ago, they wanted to charge $4,500, and well, we said no. And so this year, they're providing that at no cost, and we'll have even more things. But call out to the staff. We've made great strides. I think now in the last 2 years, we now accept credit cards. We have a texting ability, so if you're out and about in the Chaska or the Chanhassen community, you get a text reminder when you need to come back to have your visit. We're doing a lot of scheduling. We've done a tier event where we hire people in and we give them more money as they get through different gates. And so the last 2 years has been significant as it relates to improvements at the DMV. I'm proud of that. The data will help us even more. Costco opened up, grand opened, which is a big deal for a lot of people. It was interesting to see the taxes that get generated off of that property. $550,000 is the estimated tax that gets generated off there on about an estimated $20 million building. A very small fraction of that comes back to us at the county level, about $75,000. But some of it comes back to the school districts, some of it come back to the city, and then there's a neutralizer or equalizer that goes outside the county. But Costco is an example of a tax-paying entity that can help defray the taxes. Roughly 100 houses, it's equivalent about the tax of about 100 houses. And I've been out and about, not only at those events, but others, and taxes is on people's mind. The lack of planning in a number of entities has led to $500 million of civic investment in the eastern part of our county in the next 3 to 5 years, deferred maintenance on a number of buildings, and need for a police department, et cetera, et cetera. And so people are about had it. Taxes are just too high. I was with a senior group this morning that wanted to chat with me. And they're trying to connect with seniors that are places of need, and I hear it over and over and over and over that they need relief, and they're not in favor of high taxes. And then the final thing, a little one, Brooklyn, she's 8. She'll be competing in national softball. I know dozens and dozens and dozens of other kids are doing the same thing. But good luck to Brooklyn and her teammates and other people that are competing in national sports complexes across the state. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned the environmental center. I was with at the Monday night meal last night, and we got talking about environmental centers. There's one up in Cologne. They do a great job. Just a reminder of you taking cardboard to the environmental center, fold it up. I mean, it's nothing to it. Just crunch it, make it smaller. It takes up a lot of space. It should be something that, and it's good exercise. And you're speaking of Costco, and many people do have memberships to Costco, and we don't mind paying that membership because we get a value. But the best thing about having Costco in Chaska is you don't have to drive to Eden Prairie. I mean, hey, this is nice, and you go right by the environmental center on the way. So, depending upon which direction you're coming from. So, okay, Mr. Fahey.
Thank you. Want to just say thank you to the Carver County Association of Townships. They did host us at their semi-annual meeting last week. It was just an opportunity for all of us to learn more about cannabis. So thanks to Jason and also Dave Fishman for their presentations, very informative. Also, I just returned yesterday from the Midwest Regional Short One Railroad Conference. Just great topics and an opportunity for me to learn more. And if most people in Carver County, we do have a rail line that comes in from the south that connects to TC&W at Norwood Young America. And then that rail line continues to run through southern Minnesota to Halley Falls. So it was just a great opportunity to learn more about the railroads. And then also the NYA Lions, their annual corn feed is this Thursday from 5 to 8. So it's free corn on the cob. It's music by the Jolly
Who's
Ramblers.
got ripe corn already?
I think we're getting it from Illinois.
Okay, all right.
That's at the Legion Pool Park in Norwood Young America. And then also, excuse me, the Cologne Glad Days, that starts next week on the 25th through the 28th. There's a lot of fun activities, softball. There's a tractor parade on Sunday the 28th at 11 o'clock, and they'll have over 100 plus tractors. So it's a great opportunity to take young kids to sit and watch all these old tractors go by. It's a good time. Also, remember it's Carver County Fair season. That's August 7th through the 18th. So we'll be ramping up for the best county fair in the state is the Carver County Fair. And then also for the employees, the peer awards deadline is this Friday. Just a reminder to submit your nominations for the 2024 peer awards this week. If you'd like to nominate a coworker for their excellence in customer service, project-based teamwork, or innovation, please go to the connection page and file out that form.
Well, thank you. You have to explain, it's Cologne Glad Days. Where does the glad come from?
It comes from a flower, the gladioli.
I knew that, I just wanted to make sure. It's not that not that all the people in Cologne are happy all the time, but gladiolas, yes, beautiful flower. The only thing I didn't like about gladiolas is you gotta dig them up. They're gonna freeze if you leave them in the ground, they'll rot, so I have to dig those bulbs up every year. It got to be more work than I was willing to do, I guess. In Chaska, we know that 41, they've been digging a tunnel underneath 41 to get from the east side of 41 to the west side on our trail. Well, that tunnel will be officially have a ribbon cutting at 11 o'clock this Sunday, the 21st, at 11 o'clock. So I plan on attending that after church. But like I say, there's going to be the Chaska Chamber of Commerce is putting it on. There's going to be a lot of activities on both sides of the tunnel. And also, you mentioned the fair starts the 7th. Well, the 6th, August 6th, is the Night to Unite block party, where most cities, most communities get together for a fun night of meeting your neighbors, uniting with your neighbors, getting together, knowing them. We get a lot more done in our community when we get to know the person that lives next door, because they probably have the same interests and activities and stresses that you have. So get to know your neighbors. The Night to Unite, August 6th. And with that, it brings us to the end of our community announcements. Our consent agenda. This morning, our consent agenda consists of about 9 items, and everything from a donation acceptance from the Waconia Rotary Club to CCHHS funds from the Department of Health. We have a professional service agreement for pavement markings. We have appointment to advisory committees. We have temporary liquor license, another professional service agreement. We have right-of-way plot for County Road 18, petition for eminent domain on County Road 18, and then our Health and Human Services and Commissioner warrants. With that, is there anything that should be pulled to discuss, or if there a motion to accept the consent agenda as printed?
Move to approve, Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Uderman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fahey to approve the consent as written. Any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to
Commissioner
mention, if able, 5.6, we see some people in the room with the Better Society. Community Resource Center has been something that's near and dear to me. It feels like this is the right next steps. If you would allow maybe 60 seconds for them to speak a little bit on the topic and in support of Community Resource Center.
We don't have to pull it off, but we can if they're here. Kai, come on up and say a few words about the professional service agreement with Better Society that we are going to approve. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. Kai Tran, Board Chair of A Better Society. We've been here in Chanhassen for the last 16 years.
Seems like just yesterday.
Yeah, it does. It does. Very proud to be part of the community. Working with Health and Human Services for a number of years, working with environmental services. There are a number of things that our communities have gaps and needs for, and a community resource center, a family resource center, has been always at the top of a lot of people's lists. And it's this huge, big elephant that is difficult to really address. But along the way, we can make small steps. And we believe this partnership with the county is the next step, and it's not actually a small step. This is a big step for us as a county. We are learning lessons and best practices from our neighboring counties here in the state, and so within the next year to 2 years, we hope to launch the Carver County Community Resource Center, Family Resource Center, with the help of a lot of other partners and organizations within the communities.
Well, thank you. You're a good example of working together, we can accomplish more than if we try to do it by ourselves. So thank you very much for that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just elevate this too, and Kai, you're very modest when you say these things, but you've been hard at work for a number of years. I love your effort with Project Linkage, and manifests itself through the app Unite Us. And for those that aren't familiar with it, the effort is to have one front door for people that are in need. And right now, there could be somebody that has 10 or 15 needs that has to go to 10 or 15 places in a place that they don't have the capacity to do that. And so we're trying to narrow that so we can get impact sooner, and the cost to the community, the negative cost to the community doesn't linger longer. And you guys are a sterling example. I'm so proud of Kate and Heather that have helped pave that way too. So I don't want the moment to be missed without having those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fahey, you had a comment?
You're doing a great job, Kai.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. We really appreciate what you do, and this opportunity with the relationship with Heather and her team, and great partnership.
Thank you.
And with that, all in favor of approving the consent, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 6.1, an ordinance number 107-2024, a moratorium on cannabis business activities in the unincorporated areas of Carver County. With that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Jason Melke, our land management supervisor. Mr. Melke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. As Commissioner Degler did point out, we are here in regards to a public hearing on enacting an ordinance. However, based on some information that was reviewed and additional research done, the staff, along with the county attorney's office, is going to recommend that this item be continued to a date certain.
But I think in the meantime, we should probably open the public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Uderman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fahey to open the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to open the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jason. Continue.
Yes, and with that, Mr. Chair, I guess I'm going to enter into the record the proof of publication of the hearing notice, proof of mailing of the hearing notice. We did provide a draft interim ordinance, as well as a draft county board resolution. Based on the public hearing notification, we did receive 2 emails that were submitted yesterday, Monday, July 15th, 2024. Both of them were from a Mr. Richie Mann. One was sent at about 6 in the morning, the other was 11:45, but both kind of identify some concerns he has with the process and the direction that the county is proposing to go by enacting a cannabis moratorium in the interim timeframe. Again, the whole point of the discussion with potentially continuing this public hearing is due to the state statute and different responsibilities. The county board's responsibility of having a quorum to do regular business, and the section that pertains to enacting an ordinance of any sort. And based on the information that was reviewed, having a full board is more than likely required when we're looking at trying to address in the enactment of an ordinance. So therefore, the reason for recommending the continuance. In the meantime, I guess we will provide just a quick overview. A lot of this information will be provided again with the upcoming public hearing continuance. A lot of these regulations were established in 23. The Office of Cannabis Management is responsible for the oversight of the cannabis industry and establishing rules, basically standards that the local unit of government has to abide by, as well as the State Office of Cannabis Management. In 2024, the legislative session had modified some of that cannabis language and allowed for early applicants as part of a lottery process. And based on submitting of an application, so on and so forth, an individual would be allowed to do up to 9 different types of cannabis-related businesses. That's something that we weren't exactly sure what was all going to be included as part of this early application process, but it does involve the cannabis growing, which is called cultivation, along with the micro and meso businesses, which has a cultivation component as well as production and manufacturing. The whole point of allowing this is to allow applicants that are successful through the lottery process at the state to be able to start seeking properties, getting financing based on the investment that's needed, and ensuring that there is a product that is marketable by the time January 1, 2025 rolls around, which ultimately is the start of the retail component through the state process. We do up on the screen here have the Office of Cannabis Management anticipated decision-making timeframe that they have. The verification process, so an individual, if you meet the social equity requirements, you can submit your application. That concluded July 10th. The business licensing pre-approval, which is the next step as part of this upon the verification, submitting all required information that the state is going to need to see prior to them indicating that you have a complete application and would be allowed to enter into the lottery process. The lottery process will take place later this fall. They do not have a specific time frame. And as part of the lottery process, they notify the local unit of government to ensure that the applicant is meeting local requirements, whether it's state, or excuse me, city, if a township, and this is statewide, were to have their own ordinance requirements, if these types of uses fit the land use requirements. So based on our county board discussions we have had 2 work sessions. If you remember, one was back in 2023. We kind of went through what the state had actually established as part of the cannabis law. And in 2024 of June here, we had another discussion to provide an update on the state's amended process to allow for this early application lottery process. And today we are ultimately going to be opening the public hearing, having the discussion about the enacting the moratorium. Again, this is being requested to be continued, but the moratorium would ultimately be for the cannabis businesses within the unincorporated area of Carver County only, because that is our jurisdictional area that we're responsible for. We did do the public hearing notification process. We published it in the Patriot July 4th. That's the minimum 10-day requirement based on the state statute. We did send a notification to all 10 townships, which included the clerk and township chair. We did do the notification and send it to the 11 cities, which ultimately went to the administrator. And as you can see, we provided the dates as to when this all took place. July 9th, we did get the ability to link the public hearing notice with the draft moratorium language on our Carver County Land Management page. And it was tied to search words. So if anybody's looking up moratorium, Carver County, cannabis, public hearing, I think those key words would ultimately direct you to the location where you can find the cannabis county board resolution, as long as with the draft moratorium language.
I just did it. It just popped up. It's the first one.
Thank you very much. The intent of the moratorium would be to allow the county more time to study the whole cannabis law and provide reasonable restrictions on the time, place, and manner of the operation of cannabis businesses. That's established in the state cannabis legislation. And it also would allow us to take a look at other model ordinances that the Office of Cannabis Management has put together, and do an analysis on based on the setbacks that are in the state statute, are there other setbacks that we want to implement as part of our land use? We can be more restrictive, we can't be less restrictive than the state, and we do have to provide some ordinance language to address the cannabis requirements. And again, it's based on the cannabis business types that are within the state statute. Along with the review of ordinance language and kind of getting an idea of what other counties, what other jurisdictions are ultimately doing. Remember, everybody's in the same boat here. Everybody is scrambling to try and establish an ordinance by the end of the year. State statute technically requires the jurisdictions to have an ordinance in place by January 1 of 2025. But the study would allow us additional time to take a look at performance standards that we ultimately want to see, whether it's cultivation, whether it's production, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's a retail business. And again, getting back to setbacks and based on some of the performance standards, if you're doing production, are there odor concerns and what's the setback distance from an adjacent property owner? The draft language, or once we have done our research, we would be incorporating our ideas, thoughts, the feedback we get into the draft ordinance language and present that to the county board when we get to that point. It would have to go through our planning commission as part of a public hearing process to provide a recommendation to the county board. So there's steps that need to take place in order to enact our zoning ordinance for the enforcement and administration of the cannabis. But right now, as part of the moratorium is to basically stop everything or whatever you feel you want to stop to allow us the time and provide the resources to establish the ordinance that will ultimately be using for the next few years and beyond. The moratorium would be effective upon the county board's passage for the interim ordinance, and the end date would be January 1. We cannot go beyond that. That is also in the state statute language. We can do an interim ordinance, but you cannot extend it beyond January 1 of 2025. At that point, everybody is responsible for having an adopted ordinance in place. So the scope is for the land use portion only. As we've had discussions and as part of other presentations, Mr. Frischman has talked about the retail business registration. That is a separate process than what we are talking about with the moratorium. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. This is land use only. It's only for the unincorporated of the areas of the county, which we are responsible for the administration and enforcement. And it applies to all business types currently, but it only really impacts what I feel is the cultivators, even though the language does identify the establishment of other types of business uses. I think part of the reasoning, and I say that, is based on individuals that go through the lottery process. My understanding is that's not going to be available till later this fall. And the state has to go through their rulemaking process and do a public hearing and provide notification for public comment. And a lot of that information will not get completed until this fall. So really, applications we won't see until maybe September, October. If that were the case, but then it depends upon what an individual is looking at doing. Are they looking at doing construction of a project, which you start getting into fall and then you're dealing with weather conditions and getting structures up. If you're looking at outside cultivation, chances are you're not planting anything come September, October because it's getting close to winter and freeze time. So timing of it isn't great for somebody to try and start something, but it is a possibility. The impact, Any land use permits for the new cannabis business would be denied basically if the moratorium as it was drafted were to be enacted. And that would be in place until January 1. The pros, it allows more time to study the impacts of the new law and how it fits with our land use. It prevents applications to get in ahead of an ordinance where we don't have specific standards or conditions in place. And the con of it, it does delay businesses for individuals that have submitted an application to the Office of Cannabis Management to try and get one of the early approvals. Anticipated timeline, again, July and August here, we're working on drafting our language for the zoning code. August to September, we're providing the townships with this draft language and requesting that they submit feedback after they meet with their town board by September 20th and get that information back to the land management department so we can take it and try and address maybe some concerns there might be and incorporate it into our language before we would get to the County Planning Commission public hearing, which we're anticipating October 15th. And that would be followed up with a recommendation to the county board sometime in November to enact an ordinance. And again, the whole idea and the goal is to get this done before we get into December, the end of the year, and obviously before 2025. A lot of this is subject to this rulemaking process that the state is working through right now. There's a lot of ordinances that are going to be established before the rulemaking's probably completed, but at the same time, we're required to follow the process and do what we need to do to get an ordinance enacted. So based on the county board action, again, I do have the draft ordinance language in the resolution. The recommendation is changing. The public hearing is open. I'm recommending that we continue this to a date certain, which would be the August 6th county board meeting. And at that point, we would still be allowed to take public comment. And at that point, we'd be closing it and looking for a motion of some sort based on the ordinance language that would be, the interim ordinance language that would be in place. And with that, Mr. Chair, I maybe will turn it over to Mr. Metz to highlight some of the discussion that was discussed yesterday in the direction of the continuation of this request.
County Attorney Metz.
Thank you, Mr. Board Chair and board members. Our office yesterday researched this issue, and there's some ambiguity in the statute about whether you need a full board or not. So a conservative approach would be to postpone. That's the parliamentary term of.
We're kind of a liberal county, so.
So a motion to postpone or continue the matter to a date certain. So the August 6th at 9 a.m. is our recommendation. Another reason is it allows certain applicants to give more feedback, to be present that time. I understand applicant couldn't attend today, so that allows, transparent, open process. So that would be my recommendation. Our recommendation is if there's a motion to postpone or continue this matter to August 6th, 2024 at 9 a.m. We don't have to repost the notice then, and we don't recommend having a special meeting either. You could do that, but this is probably the best approach.
Any questions or comments to Mr. Metz? Commissioner Rubin.
It looks like maybe there's some people that have traveled the distance to come here. Will they be able to offer their thoughts while they're here today, or are you expecting them to come back on August 6th?
No, that's up to the board chair, but certainly you
I
could allow
think,
them
yeah,
to have.
since
I think that'd be a good
Anybody that's
idea.
here today, I think I
Yeah.
feel comfortable letting them give their input today. If they can't come back next time, then they can't say, okay, I was
Yeah.
here and you would let me
Yep,
talk.
good idea. I think Mr. Hemsey.
Administrator.
Sure, I would agree with that. Your public hearing is open, and
Yep.
Mark was giving you postpone or continue. I would say you continue it.
Yep.
It's a continued public hearing would be the correct term. That would be a motion at the appropriate point, but
Right.
before that, I would
That-
have
So you're saying, Mark?
public comment.
Is that what you're saying?
You can, the rules of parliamentary talk about postponing to a date specific, but you can use both terms of postpone or continue,
continue.
so it's inclusive of that.
Other comments for Mr. Metz? If not, any questions for Jason at this point?
Just a comment. I know this is
Commissioner Ruben.
it's brand new for you and your staff. It's taking you, it's different than your regular duties. And there was a gentleman in the boardroom the last time we were together that went out of his way to compliment your team in learning it. And I know you're quickly becoming experts, so appreciate the efforts of getting us to this day.
Question, Jason, you said it gives us time to put an ordinance in place. What if we decide we don't want an ordinance? Is this a Wild West, or is it a possibility for cities or the county to decide we don't need or don't want an ordinance? What happens?
Mr. Chair, I think based on the statute language, we have to adopt an ordinance. It could be taking the language that the state has, and again, they're going through their rulemaking process. So what some of the standards are with the Office of Cannabis Management as part of the application, we don't know. But there is language that we do know, and it's the 1,000-foot setback from a school and the 500-foot setback from a daycare, other public facilities where there might be minors, ballparks, things like that. But we will have to address this in the next few months here.
And then to kind of follow up on that, our ordinance can be more restrictive, but we can't eliminate. We have to.
Correct. We can place reasonable restrictions on time, place, and manner, but we cannot put language together that's going to ultimately completely restrict it from happening.
And then who does the enforcement for the land, for the unincorporated areas? I know it's the county. Who does enforcement for the cities on their ordinances?
So when it comes to the land use side of things, it will be the jurisdiction that has enacted their own ordinance.
Okay.
The State Office of Cannabis Management also has a, I don't want to say an enforcement arm, but they have the ability to do review. And if somebody's not complying with the conditions that have been put in place as part of the permitting process, they can temporarily remove their license. If the county, in this case, says, we have an individual that's not complying with the guidelines that have been incorporated into that particular request or the ordinance, we would have to let the Office of Cannabis Management know, and they can pull that license temporarily. So we do have that ability to work through the Office of Cannabis Management. When you're talking about the registration, the licensing of retail businesses, that will be a different process. And that's where I think we've talked about this a number of times, how it's handled with some of the other ordinances that Mr. Frischman and his staff administer.
Some of the questions I'm asking, I'm just getting it on to make the public aware of it. Mr. Fahey.
Yeah, very good questions, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jason, because we are talking about the land use only, and we're talking about the unincorporated areas, which are mainly the townships. And when we talked at the Township Association meeting last week and shared all that information, there's just so many questions. And a lot of these township supervisors have so many questions. And we look at the intent and to be able to conduct a study to review the model ordinance that are drafted by the OCM, and we're still trying to understand all of that. And then for me, it's the potential performance standards, the security, the odor, the lighting. And this brings me back to the solar gardens, solar farms, that some of us have gone through that whole process. And it's going to allow the townships also time to do their due diligence with the moratorium in place. And just to pull everything together, I definitely am in favor of continuing and talking more about the moratorium.
Well, at this point, I'll open it up. This is a public hearing. I'll open it up. Anybody from the public that'd like to address the board, give us your thoughts. And knowing that we'll probably will continue this to our August 6th meeting, but if you're here now, please come up and share your ideas with us. So the podium's here. Please come up, identify yourself, and let us know what you're thinking.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members, my name is Nate. I'm here representing hemp acres in Waconia. As you could,
A little plug in there. Who are you looking, who are you representing?
looking for investors. It's probably pretty clear that we're here in opposition to the moratorium for hemp acres in Waconia. We have two locations, 1400 Mill Lane and 8420 County Road. The County Road is our farm. The Mill Lane location is our production facility. We were Minnesota's first hemp manufacturers, and we still are Minnesota's largest hemp manufacturer. I'm not entirely sure how many other hemp manufacturers there are in Carver County right now, but we are feeling a little bit singled out with this, and we are speaking in opposition to the moratorium with primary respect to its effect of our business for the next 5 months. As it was stated, the lottery will take place in September, October, date to be determined. We will not be planting crop in September, October. We will be starting off with indoor growing. Our business plan is written and ready to go. Our manufacturing process is written and ready to go. We are ready to go with this. And our primary concern with this moratorium is the setback with us being competitive come January 1st. So it's giving us a few extra months. We're not looking at this as an opportunity to suppress cannabis in Carver County. We're looking at this as an opportunity to give us a business in York County an opportunity, a boost of 4 or 5 months to get this started so we can be competitive when it becomes legal to sell retail in January 1st. It's our general crop, even if we grow it indoors versus outdoors, will still take between 60 or 90 days to grow that crop. And before coming to Hemp Acres, I owned my own restaurant in South Minneapolis, and I can speak personally that having a period of time beforehand to get your product in spec, to get your manufacturing process up to standard to where we want to be before the date of sale is super important. And if we are only allowed to continue to start our process January 1st, it's going to set us back competitively 3 or 4 months before we can even begin to hit the market. And that product, we're concerned, we want that to be the best product up to spec and competitive with everybody else in the state and other counties who don't have a moratorium, who are allowing their businesses to practice and get honed before that date. We are looking to expand. We are not only doing hemp, but we were looking to do cannabis as well. We want to do different deals and with cities and counties to run and manage cannabis retail shops for them. We have everything in place to get this going, but if we're not allowed this period of time to begin our plans, we can't sink a lot of money into it if we can't have the benefits of that period of time to get us competitive come July 1st or January 1st, sorry.
Are you open for questions?
Yes, sir.
Just a general question. I think I know the answer, but again, there's other people that might not know. What's the difference between hemp, cannabis, and marijuana? Sometimes we use the words synonymously, but
Cannabis and marijuana are basically the same thing. Cannabis retains a lot higher THC content. Hemp we do have a botanical extract facility at the farm, so we are able to extract THC, hemp-derived THC from the hemp per Minnesota laws right now. That is far less potent than cannabis. Our primary reason for hemp is the botanical extract is a very small part of our production facility. So even though we are exclusively hemp right now, we are registered cannabis facility with the OCM. And we, as a result, I mean, this has been problematic for us as an industry. We are having to pay licenses, follow guidelines, and things that we aren't even subject to because we're not a cannabis facility, yet we're following cannabis facility guidelines and rules and regulations. The bulk of our industry is hemp manufacturing. We make animal bedding, hemp protein powder, hemp hearts, hulls, animal feed, oil for cosmetics and extracts. Apart from our facility is also capable of doing other grains, you know, sunflower, canola, flax, all that kind of stuff. But we're still all registered as a cannabis facility, and that makes kind of shipping some of our products hard here and there because they're not looking at it as a non-drug; they're looking at it as coming from a cannabis producer. So we want to do both. The whole hemp industry is on the verge of popping off. Legislation is being eased gradually. We're seeing a lot more markets open up for hemp in terms of textiles, feed, cosmetics, oils. But that is different, will be different than our cannabis-related facility. The cannabis facility is on the farm outside of Waconia a few miles, whereas the manufacturing facility is in the city itself.
Any other questions for Nate?
Yeah, Nate, can you tell us a little bit about the cannabis products that you're going to be producing per the Minnesota laws?
Sure. We're planning on doing a few varieties to start off with in terms of THC terpenes, THC gummies, as well as actual THC cannabis flower.
And then will you sell this mainly just locally then, or is your market the United States?
I mean, ideally, we would like to ship as far and wide as possible, but we would also like to start locally, work with our local Waconia board, the Carver County board, Minneapolis, Hennepin County, to see if we can. We're a Minnesota company. We're all Minnesota people who work there. We would like to keep it Minnesota, and if we can expand, we would love to expand.
And then you had mentioned it takes roughly 60 to 90 days to grow the crop. And then if you wanted to take a THC gummy to the market, if you guys decided as your marketing team and manufacturing team decided to do that tomorrow, what would be the timeline to get a gummy to the market? If you have to grow it for 90 days, then you have to process it, package it. Are you talking another 30 days, another 60 days to get it to the market?
It'd probably be about 90 to 120 days from planting to distribution.
Thank you.
That's a full season corn and soybean crop.
Right.
I mean, 120 days is a little bit long, but you can make it. But
Right.
90 day, that's just an average crop.
And growing indoors, we can grow year round. After growing indoors for a little bit, we do plan on growing outdoors and indoors together. Part of our business plan, we do have the accommodations for indoor and outdoor growing, security measures, all that.
Commissioner Ruderman, do you have any questions at this point? Thank you very much, Nate.
Thank you, Chairman, members. Thank you.
Okay, one follow-up. Did you
Administrator
apply
Lynch.
for the equity?
Yes, we did.
You're an applicant? Okay.
Yep.
All right. I didn't catch that. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public that would have a few comments this morning? Please, come up, identify yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, good morning.
members. My name is Richie Mann, and I'll make this super brief. It's my birthday, so I'm gonna.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. That's what I wanted. I'm gonna make it super, super brief. And if you have questions, great. I come this morning as a concerned citizen. I have no skin in the game in terms of businesses, like your good friend Nate here. But I'm speaking in terms of a business person. So I own other businesses. I understand how businesses run. I understand the timeframes involved with that. And so from a business standpoint and a citizen standpoint of Carver County, I live in Victoria, my concern is the loss of potential revenue and tax for the county, for people like Nate and others that are going to be starting their businesses, maybe have won the lottery and have gotten that, that okay, and that will now be postponed for X amount of time. So with that, there's a concern that they'll be moving to another county to start their business. And that revenue and tax loss is my main concern as a citizen wanting to see Carver County grow in its best way. Other than that, and like I said, I'll be very brief. That is really where I'm coming from. I did write a few emails, and during the August 6th public hearing, it will be probably something I attend as well and maybe get in more depth with some of my details. But that's really all I wanted to state.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We did receive the copy of the emails.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
I'll just have Jason maybe can you address the revenue side? What is the potential revenue? Do we know at this point what the revenue that the county or the city or whoever could be talking about? Jason? Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, Mr.
Happy
Chair,
birthday.
Mr. Chair, Board, I really can't speak to that. I don't know what each business activity is going to be different, you know, cultivators versus production. I don't see that side of the business and dealing with property taxes and so on and so forth. I would have no idea.
Mr. Frischman kind of came up. I think you must have something that you want to share with us.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and board members, Dave Frischman, Property and Finance Director. I oversee the registration side. Also,
Is the registration a flat fee?
it is a flat fee. It's set by state statute. It'll be for anybody that wants to do the retail side. So
Okay.
we won't see any of that money until 2025. And sales tax, as I understand it, would be at the retail level also. It's when the product's sold is when the taxes are going to be collected. So my understanding is a moratorium wouldn't impact any revenue to the county because of the sales tax won't start flowing until the sales start, which is January 1st of 2025.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts? Anybody from the public like to add something else this morning? If not, we're probably going to continue this until August 6th, so we could actually get more input then. Administrator Henson.
Mr. Chair, Board, Jason, if you could go back to your time frame, please. So one item I'd like staff to consider is if we look at the current ordinance draft, the moratorium draft, it says the end date would be December 31st, right? That's in the packet, the moratorium language. So if we could potentially consider either that end date or the enactment of the ordinance, that could potentially speed things up a little bit, if that's possible. So the moratorium might be able to end then if you adopted it on November 5th or the 19th. Does that make sense?
Sure.
As an option for the board, you could pick that. You know, the other, to me, interesting thing is the time frame it takes to get on the planning commission agenda. Could you describe that, Jason? If an applicant submits an application, they need to get ahead of the curve on the time frame, correct?
Correct. So these uses, if they're established as a conditional use permit, because of the commercial aspect, we need an application by a certain deadline date to get it on the upcoming planning commission. Planning commission meets the third Tuesday of every month. We need the information at least 4 weeks prior. And the reason for that is allow us to review to make sure all information is there. We are required to do the notification process in the official paper, which is the Patriot. Again, 10 days prior to when the request is being heard. So therefore, the reason why we need the information at least 4 weeks prior. It allows other departments that have some additional review, it allows them time to do that as well. And then, once the planning commission hears the request, they would recommend to the county board. And that's usually the first Tuesday of every month. That's typically how it works. But it all depends upon the use, if the request were to get continued. So you're looking, if an application technically can't get through the OMC September, October, we're talking needing to get an application in to us earlier as well. Like, if it all depends upon the moratorium language too, right? If there's certain uses that the board thinks, yeah, let's see what happens and allow just cultivation, that's excluded. We'd have to figure out, would a request like that fit into one of the conditional use permit categories of our current language to allow them to go through the planning commission and county board as well. There's a lot of moving parts. It's not a one size fits all here.
And,
Commissioner Fahey.
and then also just part of that is they have to go to the township prior.
Correct. We would require the applicant to attend a township meeting, get a recommendation from them as well. Some townships don't allow, a commercial type use as a conditional use permit on a gravel road. So there's other little caveats that come into play that we would have to know ahead of time, sit down with the potential applicant and say, all right, what are you proposing to do? And start then moving forward, figuring out how does this fit and getting to the township meetings, so on and so forth. A lot of cases, you can submit an application and still get to a township meeting. It's just to get a recommendation from them.
Is it possible to start meeting with you, an applicant meeting with you before the ordinance is modified or drafted?
Yeah, I guess, to be quite honest, Commissioner Degler, I'd entertain that idea. I'd like to talk to some of folks that are thinking of, in this case, have submitted an application like Hemp Acres and what Nate indicated. I had the opportunity to talk with Charlie, the owner of that business, yesterday, late afternoon. And again, he's traveling, he wasn't able to attend, and he kind of indicated, yeah, we submitted an application for, I think, one of the so-called hybrid options, right, where you're doing growing, the production and everything. So they do have an application in, but it's again, lottery based, and, in their case, they might be ahead of the game because they have an established business and things like that already.
Commissioner Ruderman.
Couple questions for Attorney Metz, if I may. I think that one of the things we don't necessarily want this to have an unintended consequences for Charlie's business. I mean, that's the specific one in front of us. If he gets the lottery, it delays him and it puts him at a disadvantage, particularly of people that are outside of Carver County. If we were to write a moratorium, which from everything I've seen, and I heard all the arguments, I'm not in support of the moratorium for a lot of reasons, but if we were to put one in place, can we exclude existing Carver County businesses?
And then Attorney Metz.
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know, Ms. Tish, she's in our audience too. She's the head of our civil divisions and working on this cannabis legislation. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, we'd have to
Okay.
look at that. I don't want to just.
Let me just offer some of my thoughts. I start from a place to say it's your land, do whatever you want with it. That's where I start from, right? Like, you're the business owner, you've put all the effort in. I also know that a lot of governments are seen as not pro-business. And I think that sometimes when you put different layers on top of it, it erodes some of that trust and probably prohibits other businesses from coming in. Hemp Acres has been here a while. A number of the people from Township are fully in support of you and Charlie and other things. You've invested here. And I'd hate for a local business, because we're managing risk on our side, to be at a disadvantage for other businesses that haven't done that and haven't created the relationships and haven't been in our community. I also know there's advantages to Carver County stakeholders for this, right? Whether you're a taxpayer or not. And thank you, Mr. Mann, for sharing you're from Victoria. That was my only question for you, is what is your interest in Carver County? Because as everybody knows, I had a chance to be out in Monterey, California last November for a number of reasons, but one of them was to meet with their head of Office of Cannabis. And the learning was amazing, and it's helped inform a lot of the paths here. They came out the gates. I think Monterey County benefited from $28 million of surplus revenue. And then they built it in their budget that would grow at 3 to 5% a year through perpetuity. And it didn't. $28 million was the most they ever had. What also happened is them, along with a recent trip to Wisconsin, I talked to one of the lead growers that was there a number of years ago. They were promised that the little guy would be able to compete. And anything but that has happened. You have seen the survival of the fittest. You see the race to the bottom. You've heard other businesses capitalize on this. And it really pinches out the local grower because you've got these national conglomerates that when this does get federalized, whenever that is, it puts our local businesses at a disadvantage. And so to Mr. Mann's question about taxability, I've asked our team to look into covering our costs because there's incremental costs. I mean, the cost of your time. The amount of time you're putting in this and the maybe into staying it and putting it off, like it's just going to be a drip on your team staff. That's not lost upon me. But I've said cover our costs, pull out whatever we make out of revenue just to cover our costs, and then bank everything for 5 years. We don't know what this thing's going to do in Minnesota. We don't know within those 5 years if there's going to be a nationalized thing where people will be going across borders. I mean, there's complexities that we can't even anticipate, nor should we. And so if the board at this point in time says no moratorium, if that's the path we're going, we don't need to stay. We don't need to continue it. We can make that decision today. If it's a maybe or a no, or we're leaning towards no, then we can delay it. The other thing is these gets to be pretty political, and it's not lost on me, some of the political games that get played sometimes. We could push it off till October 22nd to effectively say we're going to revisit it on October 22nd, this moratorium. And essentially, by the time you get to October, it's not going to matter anyway. So by default, we're going to stay the moratorium till then, and then we're not going to do anything, and there is no moratorium. So where I stand now, if there was somebody else to join me in it, I'm not in support of a moratorium. So if there was a second vote to do that, we could save your time and staff. We could save Charlie and his time. We could recognize Mr. Mann's comments. But if it's a maybe or a no, then we should put it off for a future date. That's where I'm at.
Other comments? Administrator Hempsey.
Mr. Chair, obviously staff are fielding hard hit balls here quickly and learning a lot on this issue, and drafting this moratorium in itself was a challenge, but it was interesting. I just, what Jason said made me think, well, geez, we can carve out pieces of this for the moratorium versus others. What comes to my mind in terms of what our current ordinances may not address adequately enough. Trust me, I'm not the expert on all the details of our ordinances, but our security and odor, those two really seem like they are different with this issue as compared to other crops that we currently have. And I'd be interested to hear from Jason's perspective when you think about their current ordinances, and if you didn't have a moratorium, the kind of challenges that might come up with an issue like security. I'm assuming we would have to address that via a conditional use permit because it's not language, because it's not in the ordinance. And I'm also then assuming it's better to have it in the ordinance versus a conditional use permit, right? For consistency, et cetera.
Jason, comments?
Yeah, I think the challenge is if we to fit it in, again, there's going to be challenges. You can add conditions. Planning Commission, County Board can add conditions as they see fit on any request, health, safety, welfare. In this particular case, the state Office of Cannabis Management, I believe their rulemaking will be finalized, and they will have specifics requirements. It will have to have security. I don't know if it'll say what type of security measures need to be taken, and that's going to be up to the local unit of government maybe to address. If something is applied for in the interim I keep going back to like a farm-related business is a conditional use permit, right? And farm-related business where you're selling a product that's locally grown. If you do cultivation and you're doing processing, could it fit that section? Absolutely, but if you're adding additional conditions to try and make sure you're including what the Office of Cannabis Management has in their rules, and it's not in our ordinance, we'll have to do that. So it's a hard question to address because we don't know what type of request we ultimately are going to get. If it's the cultivation production, then at that point, I think, yeah, you're still looking at security. Are there odor issues potentially for production? I'm not exactly sure. It probably depends on the scope and size of the operation as well, right? But security will be a big one. If it's indoor, I think you kind of have security measures based on what you're locking things up and making sure you don't have people trespassing and so on and so forth. If you have an open farm field, do you still need to do security measures? I'm guessing that there's still going to be some guidelines that you have to do security so that you don't have people trespassing and taking product. But we don't have anything in place right now as part of the ordinance, to Dave's point. If we can piggyback off of the rules that will be basically approved, we might have something, or else try and establish our own guidelines, which could be completely off base based on what the rules come back with.
And the rules will come back when?
Again, this fall sometime. So the Office of Cannabis Management is in the process of doing their rulemaking, and they will have to provide public comment, certain period. I don't know if it's 30 days or whatever the case might be. And then once they get that feedback and put it together in the actual rules, it has to go before a board that Office of Cannabis Management oversees to be enacted. And then at that point, the rules become effective, and then anybody that was in that lottery process, my understanding, would have the ability to proceed. Still have to go through the local unit of government to make sure their use is approved, permitted, so on and so forth.
Do you expect these rules from the Office of Cannabis Management to include such things as odor and security?
Yes, Commissioner Dagler, that is something that they will have, I had a cheat sheet here that identify that their so-called performance standards will have language which addresses security, odor, water usage. I think those were some of the solid waste. Some of the pieces as part of the application process, that needs to be submitted to the Office of Cannabis Management as part of that application. And then if it meets the criteria, then they'll consider the application complete.
Because it's not unusual for a CUP application to come before the Planning Commission and or the board that, I was thinking back in the days when they used to have a lot of hog facilities. And odor obviously was a big issue back then. And now with hogs, it's even more biosecurity. I mean, we want to protect those hogs from people bringing in contaminants. And when you go through a CUP process, each individual CUP is different as far as the rules and regulations and conditions that are applied to it.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Commissioner Dagler. I think each conditional use permit might have, based on location, might have slightly different conditions. There'll be the general conditions that apply to all requests, but there could be some additional conditions based on location, screening requirements, so on and so forth, that would come into play. I did find in the statute language in 342.08, establishment of environmental standards, they do talk about water standards, energy, solid waste, odor, applicable state, federal, state, local laws that they have to comply with, rulemaking. So some of the rulemaking standards ultimately become part of the state's review and approval process as well. And we can be, again, as restrictive, or we can't be less restrictive, but we can be more restrictive ultimately in some of those cases based on what the rulemaking requirements come back with.
Jason, we've heard
Commissioner Fahey.
obviously from Hemp Acres that they're in the lottery system. Is there any other Carver County business that's in a township that you know of that's in the lottery system?
Commissioner Fahey, no, I don't, and I was happy that Charlie actually showed up at the township meeting and kind of explained who he was, what he was about, and my follow-up conversation with first Nate and then with Charlie yesterday kind of shed a little more light on the direction he ultimately wants to go with his business. And I think based on him complying with the social equity aspect, emerging farmers, that's one of the criteria or one of the pieces to the social equity he applied under, having the established business and wanting to get into the cannabis side of things and ultimately doing the growing, the production, and the manufacturing. You know, he has a business plan that he's ready to move forward with. I think that technically falls under like a micro business, where you're doing growing, production, manufacturing, packaging, and then as part of a micro business, you're allowed one retail license, but the retail license doesn't have to be on said property. It can be anywhere, is my understanding. And in talking with him, and if this is continued, hopefully he's available to talk next week to explain more. But they're not looking at doing the retail out on the farm. It creates too many other issues.
Did I hear you say that social equity, emerging farmer would be a social equity issue?
Yeah, there's seven qualifications, anywhere from an individual that was convicted of an offense involving possession, sale of cannabis prior to May 1st, 23, parent or guardian, family member of somebody that was convicted. So it's a lot of that detail. It gets into vet services, veterans, but one of them is emerging farming.
Emerging farming in that field or emerging farming in general? Am I an emerging, could I qualify as an emerging farmer because I've never grown cannabis in the past?
That I don't have an answer to. I just know that based on income levels, if you're a young, upcoming farmer, if you fit the requirements that they have in their standards based on the state statute, Office of Cannabis Management determines if you qualify or not.
Wow, we're gonna leave with 2 cannabis producers today. Mr. Chair, I don't know if a motion is appropriate. We'll see it fly if we can. I would move to end the public hearing and not pursue the moratorium. I think that the practical difficulty is only for one person. I don't think anybody's gonna come in other than Charlie, from what I know. And I think that we're gonna spin our wheels and spend a lot of time on it for one person, and nobody else is gonna come in. It's our local guy. We should get behind him, and so I'm gonna throw that motion out there now.
Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chair, my recommendation is to separate those two, so motion to close the public meeting and then take Commissioner Ruben's.
Well said. We'll do so. Yep. I'll take
Close
that.
the public hearing first. Is there, the motion to close the public hearing, is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing none, that motion fails. And the reason that I didn't feel I wanted to second that is because a couple of reasons. One thing, we have 2 board members that we haven't heard from. They're not here. The other thing, we've kind of told other people, I made the comment that, hey, we're gonna keep it open. If you want some comments next meeting, August 6th, I'd hear those at that point. And I'm gonna stick to that. And it does open it up for other people who were unable to attend to this morning, that they could come and give their comments. And more that we can open this up and to make it more transparent. Some people said that they didn't see the notice, they didn't know about this meeting, blah, blah, blah. Well, this opens it up and gives it more time for more people to comment on it.
Mr. Chair, one more comment.
Mr. Ruderman.
We're here because the state moved way too fast and burdened you guys with this stuff without a plan. And so I just got a couple texts from other people that are watching. I just want that point to be known, that we're trying to pick up the pieces of a state that wasn't ready. And you're picking up those pieces. And Charlie's picking up the pieces, and Nate and others. And we have, somebody that was at the state legislature, we talked about that as well. Like, they just move too fast, and it's creating so many ripples. And so we're picking up those pieces, trying to do the best we can. Thank you to your team to continue to stay on this. It's a lot of effort that could have been avoided if there was planning upstream. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's been said, the legislation that was rushed through 2 years ago and now had to be kind of refined and fixed last time, and now, last time, it's just, like, a very good point that it's kind of rushed down at the state legislature. Commissioner Fahey.
And just to that point, if we're picking up the pieces and we have so much to learn, there's multiple comments that we don't know everything and we have so much to learn. And then a practical difficulty for one person, if I'm in favor of continuance of the public hearing meeting because there's other people out there. Maybe there are other people that entered the lottery that are in the townships that we're not aware of. We weren't aware of hemp acres until roughly a week and a half ago. So there's other counties, there are other cities that are putting moratoriums in place just for the same reason. And I think we got to get it right. I think it's important to get it right. And the safety aspect, the security part of it, and just understanding the whole process. I feel we got to get it right. So I would be in favor of the continuance.
Is there a motion, you want to put that in the form of a motion to continue the public hearing and continue the public hearing till August 6th, 9 o'clock?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
And I will second that. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will continue it to August 6th at 9 a.m. Well, that's when the meeting's gonna start, so I'm not sure when we'll get to it on the agenda, but that's, Administrator Hemsey, your report.
I just want to note, Mr. Chair, in your upcoming meetings, there is a Lake Minnewaska Regional Park Playground groundbreaking at 11:30 today. That was not in your packet. It was in last week's packet, so there was public notice. We'll make sure we keep them in your packet until they actually are over with. I talked to Krista about that. But it was public notice, so are all three of you planning on attending?
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'm not sure if I'll make it.
Okay, either way. All right, okay, I'll see you there if you make it. That's it, Mr. Chair, thank you.
And with that, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss confidential appraisal data and the last written offers for a purchase of real property on the Highway 18 project, Arboretum area pursuant to Minnesota statute 130.05 subsection 3C. First of all, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved, Mr.
Or
Chair.
do we end the meeting first?
We adjourn.
Do we adjourn first? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, we debated this, Mr. Chair, and we're recommending that you adjourn and then go into closed session. And having said that, we're going to double check Robert's rules to make sure. But to me, it makes sense just for practical logistics of letting Cullen go, et cetera, and getting the votes right.
Yep.
So, Mr. County Attorney, you're comfortable with us adjourning and then making the motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman and board members, yes, I'm comfortable with that. We're being transparent that
We are going
into closed session and we're not coming back to any open meeting. And I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you have any more specifics on the actual address or the PID number.
We have a whole list of 22 parcels
Okay.
with PIDs.
So I would just emphasize that those are listed in the public notice, that we're not going to read through the
Correct.
numerous ones. But if somebody wants to know specifically what properties we're talking about, they're listed in that notice.
Well, thank you very much. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fahey, second by Commissioner Ruderman to adjourn. There's no discussion on that motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned and we are going into closed session.